You want to see how to not place glue-in bolts at the fruit bowl? Check it out on this episode of How Not to Highline. This is Joey Mashesky from Balance Community Slackline Outfitters out here in sunny Moab, Utah. And we're going to place some glue-in bolts so you know how the process works.
So you start that process by banging. We are banging the rocks to see where the most solid rock is. Now in Yosemite, we don't generally have a lot of hollow spots, even though there are some. There's nothing but hollow spots where he's hammering right now. That's not the banging I was talking about, but we're just deciding where to put in bolts so they're the strongest, because if you put them in between a bunch of layers, it's probably going to come out. So we're only drilling the bolts this far until we make sure we like where everything's going to be. And then we have two drills with us, and we're just going to 150 millimeters down for the glue-in bolts that we have. It's nice to just do just a little bit and then have the conversation again, because these are going to be in this rock longer than we're going to be alive. So we really want to make sure we do it right and not just place them anywhere.
So we're about to drill a stabilizer bolt, and I like to use my leg as a kind of a stabilization for the drill to keep it straight as you're drilling, and that's very critical to keep the drill as straight as possible, because you don't want to play with the angles, because the hole will become conical and you'll end up wasting a lot of glue. For expansion bolts, that's an even more issue, because the hole needs to be consistently sized for that sleeve to engage properly.
And what do you think about angle? Is straight down the best for glue, or
yeah, you always want to be perpendicular to the rock.
Okay. Always be clipped in when doing this. Oh wait, there's nothing to clip to.
We're creating a clip.
Yeah, puh. So we're just testing the bolt right now. Obviously you have to put a wire brush in the hole, brush it, blow it before you put in glue. We're just testing it right now. Trying to get rid of those high shoulders so it sits in there well. And you can see here that we put the weld on the backside. So, not that the weld would break, but it's pulling on this side instead of against the weld.
Oh, that's okay back there.
Good. Whoa.
Oh no.
That is where not to bolt.
That actually sounds really good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
And we're gonna bolt back here so we can put our hang frame up here. Everything bolted at the fruit bowl is pretty far back because of that hollow sound you just heard. Oh. Nice. So you notched it out so the weld would be buried.
Yeah.
What happens if you dig it too deep? How do you keep
Fill
it from being
with
too
glue.
shallow? Oh, fill it with glue first and don't
Yeah.
push it down.
Yeah.
It's a good trick.
Yeah, you really you don't want to cover it too deep, because then you can't get stuff.
Can't get 12 millimeter quick links in there.
Exactly.
And always wear eye protection. Always stand directly in line of the hole when you're blowing air.
You want to breathe the dust.
Take a deep breath after you blow it. That's pretty good. Do you ever put tape on your drill bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tape's a great way to keep track of how deep you are. Okay, so we're cleaning the holes. We cleaned them as we went, but we have to brush them. And you don't just brush it once. You can see how much dust comes out of there. And how much more dust just came out because I brushed. We have to do this 3 or 4 times in order to really get it clean. And not just because it's sandstone. I find that granite in Yosemite is the same way. You clean it all the way to the bottom, including this trough. What's nice is if you clean the area around it so you're not getting dust in there. And then this Hilti blower is not cheap. I bought it used on eBay, and it works just fine. But these have a lot more force than if we were going with a straw and all that dust blowing into our eyes for all the bolts we're putting here. So anyways, I'm still gonna brush that. I'm gonna brush the trough. We already know that it's long enough. This is a monster Crux bolt from boltproducts.com. It's P-shape, so we only have a trough on one side. We set it in there. The glue will bury the bottom of the P. These do not need to be multi-directional. If they did, we'd put the notch on the other side, facing away from me, because if it's facing this way, you can pull any way you want and it's not going to turn it. From this way, if you pulled it sideways, it would want to spin it. Once it spins, it could crack the glue and possibly compromise it. But these are so bomber, it's just not an issue here. So that hole is clean, ready for glue, and that bolt in there signifies it's ready, so we can glue all at the same time once we get our stuff that we need. Don't use the first squirt out of the bottle until you do like 5 or 6 squirts into a bag. And then you can check later if it's mixed properly. So you want to go deep in the hole and fill it up from the bottom. It's right next to the hole. And you don't want to overfill it because the bolt's going to take up a lot of that room. Now when you put it in there, you want to put the weld on the backside and you want to go and twist. You don't want any air pockets. Where's the weld? The weld's on that side. Right there. Now you don't want to make a mess, but even more importantly, you don't really want glue on the bolt where the rope is going to touch, because you don't want sand to get attached to it. You don't want it to be sharp because you don't want it to abrade the rope. Now the other bolts we were pretty clean about, and the bolt here we were able to just chip off the excess glue that got on there later. But that's something you really want to be aware of, is to make sure those bolts are round, smooth, and have no sharp points when you're done. Once the glue is done, we generally put the dust we got from drilling or local sand and throw it on to the glue to hide the color difference between the glue and the rock. And this really helps cosmetically the look of all of your bolts. Now oftentimes I'll put tape around and do it really clean and square, and then like use Q-tips and make it really flat for something like Yosemite where it's flat and polished. But this terrain is so rugged that it actually looks more natural having an uneven glue surface here covered with the sand that's just nearby. Okay, so it's the next morning. We bolted basically through the night so we could start rigging today. Now this is the Hilti V3 500 glue, so it takes 24 hours to dry at 32 degrees, but it's quicker when it's warmer. And it's going to take us a while to build all these anchors. It's going to be cured-ish by the time we're ready to pull the net over. And just nobody's going to get on until tomorrow anyways, so we can keep being productive. Ethan was so nice to bring us a thermal laser for us to find out what temperature this shit is, just because we like to nerd out on numbers. But we put these in yesterday. We made sure the shaft was clean. We twisted it as we put in there, made sure there's no air pockets, and come check this out. We threw a ton of sand on this so it would hide a lot of the glue. And it dries a little bit deeper burgundy, so it actually doesn't look too bad on the rock here. Of course, it'd be nice if we had no bolts, but can't rig a net without that. So this is ready. The temperature is 52 degrees.
pretty awesome considering I was pretty cold this morning.
One of the things we did was we squirt the glue into here 6 times to make sure it's properly mixed before we put it in the hole. It's one of the worst things is filling a hole full of glue that's not mixed. So this is pretty rock hard. I'm making a mess now. Leave no trace. But this is not candy. But I feel pretty good about building anchors off of this already.
Looks tasty.
Yeah. Okay, so the net is up. Just remember when you put in glue and bolts that you clean the hole really, really well, that you notch it but not too deep so you can't get things through the eye, and that you really think about where you place them because they're going to be in there a really long time. If you put in some really good glue and bolts, you might be tempted to rig a space net, which is a lot of work. Therefore, you shouldn't bolt.